Welcome to the Lowe Post podcast. The NBA playoffs start in 2 days. We know 6 of the 8 series. After tomorrow's final 2 play-in games, we will know all 8, but we can't wait that long. You need time to listen and digest and prep. So in the name of the basketball gods, we call upon what is now an annual tradition. It used to be the 8x8, 8 minutes apiece for 8 first-round series podcasts. It's now, I don't know, the 10x6 and a couple minutes on the 1-8 series. We don't know. And we always do it because we need to be smart. We need to get smarter. We need to know the X's and O's, the themes. With Of True Hoop, the author of Basketball is Jazz, David Thorpe. How are you?
Zach, I'm well. Thank you for asking. And I just have to say, I always look forward to your podcast so much. Sometimes we get blessed to get them 2 in a week. And I do my morning walk, which I've been doing for a long time now. And first thing I always do is to check to see if you drop something. And all this week, the habit is, boy, I wonder who Zach's talking to about the playoffs, because I just forget that it tends to be me. And I'm always so disappointed that I'm the one that has to talk instead I get to listen to Kirk and KP or whomever. But we're going to do our best to get smarter with each other for sure.
As always, I have ordered these series as the dictator of this podcast in my level of interest in them, starting with the most interesting to the least interesting of the 6. We will mention, as an aside, the 1-8 possibilities later, but we obviously don't know them. I have already revealed to you that my most exciting first-round series, and I would argue there are 4 candidates for this spot. You could pick any of the 4. And then there are 2 that are kind of like, we'll get to them. Still, we'll give them their due. Number 1 on my list, just an irresistible matchup. So irresistible that it veered into the cartoonish earlier this year during the Shannon Sharp, Dylan Brooks brouhaha. The Los Angeles Lakers, the number 7 seed, going to the Memphis Grizzlies, the number 2 seed. And it's not just irresistible because of the sort of the aging lion of LeBron James against the young, up-and-coming, audacious Memphis Grizzlies and all the Shannon Sharp nonsense and all that. The Grizzlies, this version of them, I mean, I think they put themselves on the national map with a game in Los Angeles when that was the game when Kyle Anderson, back when he was a member of the Memphis Grizzlies, talked you-know-what to LeBron, which nobody does. And that was the same game when Ja Morant did the Superman two-handed block on Avery Bradley, I believe, on the backboard in transition. Everyone's like, oh my God, this team is not messing around. And if Steven Adams or Brandon Clark, if just one of them were healthy, I don't even need both, I would be pretty aggressively all in on Memphis to win this series, despite the fact that I think most of the media is probably going to pick the Lakers, who are 19-8 in their last 27 games. They've been a very, very good team now for a significant sample size. But I like a lot of what I like a lot of what Memphis can still bring in this series. But if you just gave them one more big, I would like their combination of sort of brutishness. And the Lakers, although they played fast this year, they were a really bad transition defense team. And they don't like these like young, energetic, flying around, athletic teams, and who just don't want to be in your face, create chaos, get out in transition. And that's the Grizzlies to a T. And even in the half court, you got Desmond Bane running around, just flying around. And I think D'Angelo Russell will be guarding Desmond Bane for good chunks of the series. And that's a good way to punish D'Angelo Russell, just run his ass around. I like a lot of what Memphis has in this series. I don't know who I'm going to pick, but if they had one of those guys, I think I'd pick them. As of now, I'm still undecided. What interests you about this matchup, Coach?
Well, you did a pretty good job of summarizing a lot of my thoughts. It is an old versus young, really athletic versus super skilled and crafty, certainly in the best players for the Lakers. Although they have a lot of skilled guys. Lakers, Pelinka built a heck of a team. There's a lot of talent on that team. And I agree with you totally that especially if Adams played, LeBron is past the age now where he likes to crack back and block out the other team's big. When AD goes to block a shot, he ain't messing around with that. Adams would crush them if that was the case. It won't be as hard now without him. But what interests me the most, which I think is the biggest story, I alluded this to you in a text earlier, I have to always remind myself to, in the world of physics, you have to think of the biggest forces that affect us first. And I do this all the time as a teacher. Gravity always wins. The gravity in this series, in my opinion, is Darvin Ham. I thought he was bad all season. Doesn't mean he didn't do some good things, and they're playing pretty well. I know he's a rookie coach, and coaches can always get better and often do. That's just like anything else. But I think his knee-jerk reaction, and he's not the only one in the playoffs that does this, is to keep going back to his stars. And that's exactly what Memphis needs. Even if they drop a game of the first two, and even 2-2 after 4, Dillon Brooks wears people out. He is a very physical defender. Jaren Jackson, we know what he can do defensively. I think he's the defensive player of the year. LeBron James was exhausted at the end of that play-in game. That's why he kept throwing the ball to the bad guys and making one terrible, terrible play after another. Zach, tired players make mental mistakes constantly. And I think this is a youth versus age and experience battle. And I think youth is heavily favored in this, certainly with that extra guy. I think they're going to wear that team down. I don't trust Darvin to just play what I think is a deep bench and give those guys a break. We're going to see 38 plus minutes every game from those two stars, and I think the Grizzlies can wear them down.
I think the Grizzlies can definitely win the series. Like I said, if they had just one of those two bigs, and particularly Adams, who is just a one-man offensive rebounding team. I mean, by himself, he makes you an elite offensive rebounding team, and without him, they're just kind of average. Look, we talked about this over text. There's one obvious theme here that should concern the Grizzlies and concerns me picking the Grizzlies. Look, Dillon Brooks is going to guard LeBron. He'll be the primary assignment on LeBron. Jaren Jackson can guard Anthony Davis, and when he does guard Anthony Davis, that's a pick and roll you can actually switch without that much pain. Like, yes, AD will hurt Dillon Brooks in the post, but Dillon Brooks is like a cinder block, man. You're not going to move him. He's going to make you earn it. You got to help and load a little bit, but like, that's not a painful switch. And step one to beating the Lakers is if you can switch that two-man game, you got a shot. Now, I bet they'll start games with Tillman at center and guarding Anthony Davis, so Jaren Jackson can roam off of Vanderbilt. That both protects Jaren Jackson from the big issue that we're about to talk about, which is fouls. If Brooks and Jackson are guarding LeBron and AD a lot, the Lakers were second in free throw rate on offense and first in free throw rate on defense. They're walking into every one of these games with like an 8-0 advantage just from free throws. And without Clark and without Adams, and by the way, Jaren Jackson Jr. was often their second choice on LeBron when Dillon Brooks rested during the regular season. I just don't know that they can survive foul trouble to one or both of those guys. And foul trouble to both of them in the same game is going to be a catastrophe. And that's the obvious spotlight issue in this series. It's the one the Grizzlies fans are going to be looking for because they're going to cry conspiracy as soon as the officiating starts to tilt against them. The Lakers are really good at forcing the issue. I think the Grizzlies bring some tools on defense to this series that can really, really wear the Lakers, not wear them down, but make it harder for the Lakers to score, even when they have the floor spread, even when they take Vanderbilt off the floor and they just put shooting around LeBron and AD. I think the Grizzlies have some pretty powerful defensive answers to that. I just worry that fouls are gonna limit their ability to really, really deploy those for as many minutes as they need to.
Well, I think you kind of buried, just because all those smart things you said, I think you kind of buried what maybe is the biggest story connecting to the foul issue, and that is the ability to switch those screens, not just with Triple J and Brooks, but also with Tillman. Tillman's lighter on his feet than I think people realize. He defends AD, I thought, pretty well. They might even let him try LeBron. And you have to remember this: when the Lakers, the Lakers had Thomas Bryant, like poised to have the greatest offensive season, minutes a part of it of all time. Like, it was crazy. And that was LeBron pick and rolls. He can't play in Denver. They have no LeBron on their team. No one knows how to pass the ball and pick and roll for them, except for Jokic, who never plays when Thomas does. The Lakers aren't going to have that advantage if Memphis can switch it and not foul. And so, to me, the first step in fixing a problem is absolutely knowing that it's there and addressing it. And I think Taylor Jenkins is absolutely elite as a coach, maybe top 5 in the world for professional athletes. There's no question. It's in big red ink all over the locker room. We cannot foul. As someone who teaches the game for a living, you can help guys not foul. It challenged their discipline, right? It's not about toughness here. It's about the discipline of make them make those shots over you. Don't reach, don't grab. And if they beat you, they beat you. Save that foul later on. Give them the 2 points. And help is coming anyway. That doesn't mean they'll do it, because part of Memphis's issue is they're so full of energy. They're so full of testosterone, and that is to their disadvantage. But I think if they can go 2-2 after 4, I think you'll see a much more fatigued Laker team, and you'll see them struggle in fourth quarters, and Memphis can win.
What Jaren Jackson Jr. really needs to do, and he's going to, like I said, he's going to split time between Rover and guarding AD.
For sure. Yeah.
And they'll even make him a Rover when the Lakers are small and AD is the only big on the floor. They'll stick him on Troy Brown Jr. sometimes, on Rui, and say, Rove. He's really got to avoid offensive fouls. Like, I don't mind if you commit some defensive fouls. These illegal screen fouls that he's piling up, those are the ones that take you out of the game, and you're not even getting any advantage, really, by committing those fouls. On the other end of the floor, what worries me for Memphis is this is the 22nd rated half-court offense in the league against a really, really great defensive team, a very good defensive team that has a lot of answers for what Memphis likes to do, namely Anthony Davis on Jaren Jackson Jr., which is a tough matchup for anybody. I thought AD was as good defensively as anyone in the league this year, other than maybe Jaren Jackson Jr. And on Morant, this team, a feather in Darvin Ham's cap, I would say, has been one of the more aggressive teams going under screens on Morant. And they'll probably open with Austin Reeves on him, I would guess. They've used Vanderbilt on him, too, at times when the Grizzlies only have one big on the floor. We'll see if we see that. And daring Morant to beat them with jump shots and long floaters. And Morant is good enough to beat you in some games just with floaters. He will make enough floaters to punish that defense, and the Lakers will adjust, and they can adjust. But I worry a little bit about Memphis scoring enough in a series that becomes a complete slowdown half-court rock fight. And I think they're going to need to get a requisite amount of transition points off turnovers, whatever, to win this series. And the Lakers do not turn the ball over a lot on offense, as most LeBron teams tend to. They take care of the ball. That's how Memphis gets enough points in the half court in this series is a big plot line to me.
Yeah, I mean, they've got obviously some great shooters that are shooting it really well. Luke doesn't miss these days. But I think what you're saying goes to what I was suggesting about fatigue factor. Well, that's on Memphis to race. And that's on Memphis to push on makes and misses. Just cross the timeline 3 seconds upon getting possession. That millisecond you get possession, you're gone. I would stress that with Tyus, who doesn't like to run as much as Ja. Guys, we are racing all the time. The Lakers started the season racing. They have slowed down considerably. I mean, they're still, I think, 14th or 15th last 15 games in pace, but they're not top 5. And they were really racing early. They need to focus on that, Memphis does, and get into that age. Make those 2 superstars run, not just run, race. Get them to have to play with urgency a ton. And here's the thing, Zach. Maybe it's recency bias, but I watched that Minnesota game. If those were high school players making some of the passes the Lakers made late, they would be benched. Like this is still that team. They've been playing so much better. Really, after that first 1-9 start, they've been one of the better teams, even with their old team. And then, of course, this new and improved team. Russell not playing was kind of weird. I just think he's going to go with the old group that he had before the trade deadline a lot, which is fine. And I think Memphis can wear those guys down. I think those first, obviously Memphis has to get 1 of 2 at home. That goes without saying. If they get two in a row, I think they're going to cruise in the series. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Lakers win 1.
They've been a great home team all year. I think they finished 35-6 at home.
Right.
You mentioned flying. I think it's just imperative. Bane and Kennard. And it'll be interesting to see how often they play the 2 of them together with Morant, how often they risk that defensively. They need to run and run and run in the half court.
Yep.
And why I say interesting how much they play together is fundamentally the Lakers with a 6'8" greatest of all time, maybe ball handling apex predator, are just more equipped to hunt in the postseason and play matchup ball than the Grizzlies are. And he's going to hunt Ja. He's going to hunt Bane. He's going to hunt Kennard. And we'll see how they do it and what form that takes. The Grizzlies aren't quite built to do that in the same way with an on-ball creator, the way that LeBron can do it. So that's part of what interests me. It sounds like you're picking Memphis.
Yeah, I just want to touch on something you said. If I see LeBron getting downhill a ton, that's a problem that I'm not expecting. I think LeBron is taking more jumpers than ever in this series. I think in Minnesota game, his fatigue certainly mattered. Yeah, I got Memphis in 6 right now, and I agree. I think it'd be Memphis in 4 or 5 if they had Steven, but they don't. And the Lakers can win this series, but I think Memphis has a big advantage.
I'm going to wait till the last minute to submit my official pick on this. I want to think about it a little more and watch a little more film, but I'm leaning Memphis in 7. I think it's a coin flip series. They can go either way, and I just would lean to who has game 7 at home. I think it's going to be a great series. Can we move on to my second most anticipated series?
Yes.
The I-80 series, the Sacramento Kings. Welcome back to the party. It has been a long, long time. And their head coach, Mike Brown, who spent so many years under Steve Kerr, facing the Golden State Warriors. This is the 3 versus 6 seed. The Kings crowd is going to be bananas. They have home court, obviously. And there's going to be a big chip on their shoulder because everyone's going to pick the Warriors. Everyone's going to choose the championship pedigree. Andrew Wiggins coming back. We know what this team can do. I've said all year, the data, just no matter how you parse it, says when this Warriors team is whole, which they have not been for a long time, when they can start their starting 5,
right,
when they can have a bench that starts with Poole, DiVincenzo, and Kuminga, this is a really, really good team sort of hiding in plain sight. They won the championship last year. And even though this is a 3-6 series, in net rating, they're separated by less than a point. Like, there's just not a lot of evidence that the Kings are miles better than the Warriors. Plus 2.6 per 100 possessions for the Kings, plus 1.7 for the Warriors, who are now whole with Andrew Wiggins back. And here's big picture how I feel. I'm picking the Warriors in 6. And I think at full throttle and full rotation, both of these offenses can be very, very good. We know what the Kings are. They're the best offense in the NBA. I think the Warriors, with stakes, with all their guys, and good health, are much better than whatever their offensive rating is, which I think is 10th in the league. I think they're better than that. And I just fundamentally think the Warriors, with Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins and Kevon Looney, have more answers on defense than the Kings do, built around De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis up the middle, they work really hard. They've both improved defensively. The Warriors, when you give them a so-so point guard and a I don't even think Domantas is slow-footed, just kind of a big center. I don't know what answers they have defensively to stop the Warriors. So that's my big picture analysis of why I'm going to pick the Warriors. I have no idea who you're picking. I'm going in cold here.
You literally took exactly what I had in my first item, which is when the Warriors are fully healthy, and they're not fully because Wiggins hasn't really played, so we have no idea what he looks like. But you know what I mean. If the Kings have the best offense in the league, Golden State's 1A when they're cooking, which we expect them to cook now, and they're going to be a much better defensive team. The ultimate challenge for Sacramento is what to do with Sabonis against this team. I think they're 4th last 15 games, and the 4th post All-Star break and three-pointers given up. You know, obviously Golden State takes the most in the league at 43.5 the last post All-Star game anyway. I never really look at the full year because I don't care what happened in basically October through December. Sabonis has to be up at the point of attack and ball screens. He's got to be at the level of the screen. He's active.
And what you're describing is Sabonis at the level of the screen. This is 10 years now of the Warriors just destroying big centers who have to play that way against them.
Even better defenses. Right. They destroy better defenses than what Sacramento does at that. You put the Kings in rotation. They've got some slow guys. It's not a strength of theirs, but so the alternative would be, and this is what I actually think Mike Brown should do. I think who is my co-coach of the year, not that it matters, but I wouldn't do it. For what you just said, I wouldn't do it. I would occasionally do it or even blitz because, as you know, the Warriors are prone to just forgetting this is a real game, not a scrimmage, and they'll turn the ball over, right? So pick your spots, trap them hard, especially Steph or Jordan. I drop Sabonis back. I do the same thing the Celtics did in the first 4 games of the finals. Chase over the top. Curry might murder you. I get that, but prevent all layups.
Pray.
Right, and just pray. Yeah. Well, there's no other option.
Pray our guys get over the screen intact. And
don't foul him and hope he misses. That's what I would do. So at least you're not giving a bunch of layups. You can always adjust later on, but that's the problem. And this is why we both, I think, are leaning Golden State heavily. That isn't a strategy. It's hoping. And that's never something. Normally, I can even tell when we talk about Brooklyn, Philadelphia, I have a strategy for Brooklyn. I don't know if it'll work, but I have one that I think can work. I don't think anything works in this series. And I'll tell you something else. Remember this, and I know you know this well. I don't like to talk about the players I help until mostly after they're retired. There are exceptions. The last time the Kings won their first playoff game in a series when Kevin Martin had that crazy shot after the Ginobili turnover. Obviously, I had Kevin, since he was in college. That's a long time ago. It sounds like it's going to be an amazing crowd. I actually love Sacramento and the Kings crowd and everything. But that works against you in the late third quarter, early fourth. You're down 2, up 1, the pressure. You just know we have to take care of business against this team at our place because they are so tough at their place and typically so bad on the road. That pressure can work against you. A lot of these guys have never faced it. It's a concern of mine.
I guess I should have mentioned this earlier. I'm not quite throwing it out, but I just am almost throwing out the fact that the Warriors can win a road game this year. I mean, obviously they're going to have to win a road game to win the series in any series maybe that they play.
Yeah.
I just am going to just say the playoffs are here. They don't have to really travel much to these games. These are very low stress travel games for them. That's not to say I'm discounting the Kings home court advantage. Like I think it's a real home court advantage. It's part of the reason I think it'll be a long series. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, the Warriors are home court disadvantage. They were whatever and a million on the road this year. They're in huge, serious trouble just because of this fundamental thing. I think they'll be a normal playoff road team. Maybe not what they've been in the past where they win a road game every goddamn series. But we'll see. And to your point, if you watch the regular season games and read into them what you will, the Kings really didn't try a lot of stuff on defense. They would bring Sabonis up to the level, and the Warriors would be like, cool, bing, 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 bing. And we scored it. They scored at a decent rate, not a great rate, but a decent rate against the Kings. I think that's indicative of they just don't have that much stuff to try. There's just not that as enough. There's not many variations you can play with Sabonis and Fox. A couple of things they did flash, and I mean flash, is all-out blitz. We'll see how that works.
Yep.
Trying Sabonis on Wiggins even, or whoever is sort of maybe the least likely to handle the ball, screen, or run around a screen for a 3 like Klay Thompson. Now that there's an easy fix for that. You just bring Wiggins into the pick and roll. But I think we might see them move Sabonis around here and there. And they even played around with the zone a little bit in bits and pieces against the Warriors and against other teams. And I think even if all of those things are on their own, not very appealing ways to stop or limit the Warriors, I think they're going to try a lot of different stuff just to try it, you can't let them get in a rhythm of, okay, Curry Green pick and roll, boom, boom. But like they did, you just can't let them get in a rhythm like that.
Yeah. I love your idea of Sabonis on Wiggins. I thought about that because it's just really hard to miss as much time as Andrew's missed and feel that you have any kind of touch and rhythm. I don't know what he's been doing day to day. I know one thing, he has not been playing for the Warriors, and there is a tax for that. There's a cost to that. And so try some different, put Sabonis on him. That might even get him to press a little bit more. And then listen, Sacramento's not firing blanks here. They're an amazing offense, as we all know why. Sabonis, I think, has more offensive rebounds against the Warriors than any other team. He crushes them on the glass. I think he's got to be careful not getting offensive fouls himself. Draymond will get his head right in Sabonis's elbow area and catch something. Sabonis is very, very aggressive with those things. We'll see how the refs call it. I'm curious to see how much they penalize him for the kind of elbow stuff he throws. It's really part of his natural game. I'm a huge Fox fan. I'm worried. Herder and Monk have been so up and down, not just game to game, but over months. There's no such thing as a streak shooter because everyone's a streak shooter. That's how shooting goes. I teach it every day. I know what streaks look like. They all have streaks. The better ones have better made streaks and shorter missed streaks, but they all have streaks. But Monk and Herder they're great shooters, have some really terrible months, like in the 20s. Well, the Kings can't survive with that. They've got to be high level shooting. If they do that, I think Monk, I looked it up. Monk is 41% of their wins, 27% of their losses. That's not nothing. They need that kind of thing to at least put some pressure on Golden State to continue to execute, especially when Andrew's in. Because like I said, they are not going to be in rhythm. It's naive to think you can miss all this time and they're right back to the team we saw in June. It's not going to be the case. And by the way, they weren't so good to start the year with him, right? They weren't nearly that team. So that's why I think it can go 6. I don't see it going past that though.
Well, if it gets to 7, that crowd then becomes a factor, and
Absolutely
that gets to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely true.
Yes, the Kings have an incredible offense. I think that offense will sustain to some level in the playoffs. I don't think they're just going to fall apart because it's the playoffs. People play in the half court. They're going to run. They're going to be themselves. And to win this series, you nailed one thing. They need Sabonis to go bananas on the offensive glass, and they need to win the free throw game by a lot. Because the Warriors foul everybody. They're last in foul rate on defense, and they don't get to the line much. And the Kings are a good free throw team, so they need to take that margin and widen it and widen it and widen it to try to win these games. And what I mean by answers that the Warriors have on defense is when you have Draymond Green, you have answers, like just by his nature as a Swiss Army knife. And in these matchups, they have actually put him on Fox as the primary defender. Put Curry over on Keegan Murray. So we're going to hide you over on Keegan Murray. We don't think he's going to be a threat. And he has got to be a threat using Sabonis for handoffs. Even like feed him a little post up out of a timeout if they're going to try to hide Curry on him. He can actually do that.
Yep.
But they've put Draymond on Fox, and they've switched the Fox Sabonis pick and roll, even if it means Looney is guarding Fox late in the shot clock. They've been okay with that. That switch obviously becomes easier when Draymond's at center and they're more wingy and stuff like that. But you'll see Clay on Fox, you'll see Wiggins on Fox, and you'll see a lot of different kind of defensive strategies like that. And that's given the Kings some issues scoring. The Kings did not score well against the Warriors this year. The other thing on Murray, I mentioned hiding Steph on him. Yeah, man, rookie in the playoffs is tough. It's tough. And you mentioned Monk and Herder, and those guys are key. The kind of semi-forgotten man for the Kings this year has been Davion Mitchell.
I got it.
And I wonder if they're looking for defensive answers and a guy that can just hound Curry, if we see a little more Davion Mitchell and a little more of the Mitchell, Fox, Herder, Barnes, Sabonis lineup where Keegan Murray plays a little bit less and Mitchell plays a little bit more. I like the look and feel of that in theory against the Warriors. It's just something I'm looking for. I think the Kings have some cards to play in this series. I trust the Warriors. I trust their history and their pedigree and their offense against this specific defense, but it could be a fun series and a long one.
Yeah, I see why you like it so much. On the Mitchell thing, I put a note in there. When he's with the starters and instead of Fox, they're plus something. They're good. Like that, he's not had a great year offensively. He's not had a good year offensively, but he's a plus player defensively. He's good with those starters. And I've talked to NBA players who have named him as the guy that gives them the most trouble in terms of just making them uncomfortable. And so he's the guy that needs to spend some time on Curry because Fox won't be able to make him uncomfortable. So yeah, they've got some bullets to fire. And your point on Murray, listen, it's hard to be good in the regular season for a rookie. In fact, almost impossible. It's basically impossible for the postseason, especially what his role is going to be. And you also mentioned Looney, which I'm really glad about because we can't forget what he did last year. So when I say Sabonis murders them on the glass and needs to, Caban has a chance to be an unbelievable, he might get 15, 17 defensive rebounds in some games because that's his number one focus. Don't give this guy a second shot. Sabonis is great at missing a shot and getting his own rebound because you're still kind of in the air. Looney doesn't jump either. So he's in a great position to just, once he shoots it over you, take him out. Don't let him get a second shot. If they can solve that problem and the turnover problem, if they can do those two things, then all that's left is the foul issue. And that's, again, discipline. Golden State just they have more weapons. But they've been so bad on the road. If it comes back that they go 0-2 to start, we got a hell of a series.
Oh man, that would be drama. Okay,
Yeah.
series number 3 on my excitement rankings. And again, you can rank these first 4 any order you want. This is just my personal order. The Donovan Mitchell Bowl.
Yeah.
The 4th seeded Cleveland Cavaliers against the 5th seeded New York Knicks, who have the most improbable, I still don't even understand it, top 5 offense in the history of the NBA. A top 5 offense that can't shoot from anywhere. I don't even know how you do that. I mean, I know how you do that. You get a lot of offensive rebounds and a lot of free throws, and you never turn the ball over. I get it. I just didn't know it was possible to bend the math quite that dramatically where you can't shoot and you're still amazing on offense. Against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were the number 1 defense for almost wire to wire, at least the top 3 defense wire to wire, with those 2 big monsters in the middle and those 2 superstar guards up top. The biggest wild card in this series, Coach, as we know, is that Julius Randle's status is uncertain after that ankle sprain late in the season. The latest reports from the Knicks have been that he's doing parts of practice, but not the contact parts. I don't know what the hell that means, but I do know this. The Knicks can finagle their way to free throws and offensive rebounds against this team. The Cavs, as good as they are defensively, were 20th in defensive rebound.
Yep.
And their foul rate is just so-so. And I actually think the other identity the Knicks take on without Randle, which is kind of this go-go, flying around, more passing, more pace, whether it's Obi Toppin at the 4 or Josh Hart at the 4, I think that can kind of hit Cleveland as a surprise punch early in the series. The Knicks are good in that alignment. Over a longer series, just like in the regular season when a star player gets hurt, for like 4 or 5 games, a team can like find this new identity and it works. And you're like, wow, maybe they don't need this guy as much as we thought. And then it kind of hits you like, actually, you just need the shot making and the defensive attention this guy draws and the double teams and the kickouts and all that. Eventually, they're going to need good Julius Randle, to win this series. But if it's 2 or 3 games without him, I think that other version of the Knicks can actually hold down the fort and win, whether it's 1 of 2, 1 of 3, keep the series alive. But eventually, I think they'll need Julius Randle's just pure talent and shot making. I think this is going to be a long series either way. If Randle were healthy from the jump, I would give the Knicks a pretty damn good shot. I would probably pick Cleveland in 7 regardless, but that's going to be my official pick, Cavs in 7, because, I mean, the Cavs are awesome. The Cavs are just a really good team, and on pure talent, I think they're a little better. But I like this matchup.
I do too. That's my prediction. I said it on my pod earlier, Cavs in 7, so we're right on it. Pretty much all these are the same. The Randle piece isn't just important for all the things you said. It's also kind of the anecdote for Evan Mobley right now. I think I've heard you talk a lot about Evan, who was my pick to be the best prospect in his draft class, right above, like, just a coin flip over Scotty Barnes. But strength and hot motor, the kind of stuff Randle has, that's an issue for Evan still. He can be buried a little bit. It's shocking to me that Cleveland's defensive rebounding is so bad, especially post All-Star. Some metrics had him as last in the league. Now, they're not last in second chance points because they D you up really well after you get the second.
They got those arms up.
Right.
And say, good luck. Finish over this.
Right, exactly. But that goes to something you were saying. When you give up second shots, you give up fouls. And that's just a way for New York to, like you said, concoct their way to the free throw line, finagle their way to get more points that way. Now, it's also something Cleveland's got to be attentive of. They've got to be thinking, we have to keep these guys off. Mitchell Robinson, when you said the Mitchell Bowl, I know what you mean. But my first thought was I like it as Mitchell Robinson versus Donovan Mitchell. That's a
Ooh, I like
highlight
that.
thing for me.
And they
Uh,
do bring Mitch up a little higher against the Cavs because you got to against Garland and Mitchell. They bring him up a
right,
little higher, and we'll see
right,
how that goes.
and we'll see how it goes.
You know why they bring him up a little higher? They bring him up a little higher, and this is the issue the Cavs are going to face every single opponent. They bring him up a little higher because A, you have to, and B, what that means is the help's got to come in a little earlier and a little more aggressively behind him. And we don't really care if Isaac Okoro and Lamar Stevens
right.
and even Dean Wade get open threes, or we're going to force Evan Mobley and Jared Allen to tic-tac-toe their way to buckets, and sometimes they will. But that's going to be the Knicks' strategy, and pretty much everyone's strategy against Cleveland is funneling as many shots to those guys from three-point range as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So Mitchell Robinson late in the year, now it was against the Pacers, but he was a crazy shot blocker. He a monster on the glass. I think it's a real issue if Donovan over penetrates. We've seen in this so far in the playing game a few games, the Miami game in particular, where they just kept driving all the way to the rim and big bodies are there and they just kept missing and missing. That's not an accident. It's hard to score against big bodies. Cleveland takes advantage of that all the time, of course. But New York's got Mitchell Robinson back there, so that makes a difference. You hit it. It was my number two thing after that point. And the rebounding is like, who's Cleveland going to play in that fifth spot, and can they make shots? Because they're going to have to make shots. They want Okoro for obvious defensive purposes, I think, especially on Brunson, who's just a magnificent player. And he is their version of Donovan Mitchell playoff wise. He was so good in some of the spots last year. I can't wait to see the real Donovan Mitchell that we saw in Utah a few different times, especially the bubble version where he was so amazing.
Jalen Brunson can't wait to see last year's version of Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but he had 1 foot out the door, I think, last year. Okoro, LeVert is the answer offensively, but then you pay the price defensively to some degree. He isn't a set this year defensively, but he ain't Okoro. But you know what? The playoffs, Isaac's in year 3. He's young. I really think he's like 21 as that third-year player. He might grow up a little bit. This is when it happens. When you suddenly start showing some signs. And speaking of that, let's see where RJ is. RJ's going to get a chance to bully some guys. Let's see how he does. He'll try to get to his left-hand hook in the paint. He's got to shoot well from 3. It's not something that's an automatic. You don't feel necessarily confident. But this is when you start building your value as a player of, I don't just have a lot of good games regular season. You can count on me in the postseason. If they do those things, which I think they will to some degree, I think it's a 7-game series. As long as we get Randall back, I would say by game 3, looking pretty good.
Let's talk about Barrett. It's a big series for him. The Cavs offense, if weapon A is just your normal spread pick and roll with those two guards, weapon B is going to be attack Jalen Brunson. Donovan Mitchell was comfortable shooting over Jalen Brunson in the regular season. They like that guard pick and roll action to get the matchups the way they want. As you said, they'll put the Knicks will try to hide him on Okoro and other places. And the Knicks have generally had Quentin Grimes on Mitchell. And then Josh Hart, they liked on Donovan Mitchell the last time they played. They've tried RJ Barrett on Garland because, again, they want to hide Brunson elsewhere on defense. And that's a tough matchup for RJ Barrett. And if your best 2 defenders on Mitchell are Grimes and Hart, and Grimes can also really defend Garland too.
Yep.
And Quickly, who's my choice for 6th man of the year, has
Mine
to
too.
play a lot. I wonder if RJ is going to get squeezed a little bit minutes wise in this series if he's not making shots. Less so without Randall because there's just minutes to fill one way or another. But I think this is a big Josh Hart series, a big Quentin Grimes series, and every series is going to be a big Emmanuel Quickly series. So I'm interested in that. And when the Knicks have the ball, a lot of what they're going to do, other than the free throws and offensive rebounds, is they're going to go at Garland the same way. If you watch the film, they've hunted Darius Garland, and the Cavs have tried to hedge and keep him away from Jalen Brunson, and the Knicks have to pass out of that. And I agree with you on Randall. Like, the one it's not even a weakness, but the one way left to attack Evan Mobley, you better enjoy it while you can because it's going to go
Right.
away soon, is to get a guy like Randall.
Yeah.
Banchero did this to him.
Yep.
Just kind of bulldoze him and get your shoulder into him and move him backwards and just hit a shot over him, and or help has to come to the point that the Cavs will actually invert the matchups a lot against the Knicks and put Jared Allen
Right.
on Randall and Mobley on their centers.
Right.
That's why I think they need Randall ultimately to get a little more of that. But I think this is I think the strategy is fun. I think the minutes are fun. And someone's got to make shots for the Cavs, whether it's Dean Wade or I still think Jetty Osman is like a little bit of an X factor for them.
I love that. I've been a Jetty fan for years, and I'm glad you mentioned quickly because he's in my notes as it's easy to be better as a team when you've got a guy like that coming off the bench. I know he started some. He deserves 6th man of the year, I thought too. And he's capable of having huge games, and his quickness, his energy matters. The swagger he has matters. When Donovan Mitchell is right, he is such a terrific scorer and playmaker. I really love that about Donovan. I don't think he's a selfish player at all. And you've got to combat that with some serious game. Jalen's got it. You can't just have Jalen, though, because Darius can really play. I think Emmanuel really solves the problem. And if RJ can't shoot, I think you're right. Early on, RJ didn't get his chances because even if Randall plays, you would think, well, most coaches would monitor his minutes. I'm not sure Tom will. I'm not sure Coach Thibodeau will. And that's the thing to look at, too, is he playing, but it looks like he's going to wear down. Ankle injuries are so prone to return ones coming up. Every time you seem like you hit someone's foot, it turns again. We have to really watch that because I think Cleveland rolls in the series without a healthy Randall after 2 games. They got to get him at that point. They're going to run out of options. But with him there, I see the series going 7.
And if he comes back, last thing, the Cavs were guilty of this a little bit. Don't overhelp on Julius Randle one-on-one,
for sure not.
If it's,
right.
Especially if it's Jared Allen. The Knicks got some open threes because the Cavs kind of panic helped. Let Jared Allen deal with it.
Agreed.
Take away the threes. Series number 4 on my excitement level, and boy, oh boy, would this be higher if Paul George were healthy, because Paul George is just like Draymond Green, a guard, whoever you need him to guard guy, could guard Chris Paul, mostly has guarded Devin Booker, could guard Kevin Durant some, the whole gamut. The Phoenix Suns against the Los Angeles Clippers, 4-5. The Suns are the Vegas favorites to win the West. The Suns are currently my pick to win the West. This would be an all-out heavyweight fight if and maybe when, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to expect from Paul George. My expectations in my head, based on limited intel, let's say, is I'm going to be pleasantly surprised if Paul George comes back in like games 5, 6, 7 of this series. I think maybe that's possible, but in my head, I'm like, they got to figure out a way to win without Paul George, and that's going to be very, very hard for them to do. Suns, Clippers, Russell Westbrook against Kevin Durant for the first time in a long time, and in the playoffs anyway. And I actually think, a lot of the analysis, like who's going to guard Kawhi, is KD gonna have to guard Kawhi? I mean, are you really going to put Josh Okogie on him? Torrey Craig guarded Kawhi the most in the regular season. Would they dare start Torrey Craig over Josh Okogie already from day 1 of the playoffs for matchup purposes? I don't think so. Wouldn't shock me, but I don't think so. I actually don't think KD is going to open on Kawhi. I bet they'll try whoever is in there among Okogie and Craig. Wouldn't surprise me, Coach, if we saw KD guard Russ and say, we're going to ignore you and we're going to rove, and he's going to be a 7-foot menace all over the court. And just last thing, it's incredible how much incredible. We all know Durant changes whatever team he's on, right? He makes them miles better right away. We think of how he fits on offense. We even do think of how his size and rebounding could help a small Suns team. It's amazing to look at some of their indicators. So the Suns have been a very foul-prone defense for a long time. Their free throw rate is plummeted in a good way. They foul a lot less with Durant. They have been a low free throw team on offense for ages, mid-range maestros. They don't get to the rim. Their free throw rate has skyrocketed with Durant. They're a bad defensive rebounding team. They've been much better with Durant. It's amazing how he's changed not just the scoring and the sort of fluidity of their team, but some of their what were really structural weaknesses have changed. And on paper, you would say the Clippers, they get to the line a lot. They don't foul a lot. They're going to pile up a free throw advantage. That's one way they can make up for a talent deficit. It's just a totally different team, even free throw rise with Durant on the floor. Without PG, they got some answers. I think they'll try Eric Gordon on Durant a little bit and see if they
That's
get
what I
like
think they'll do too. Yeah.
some of the Pat Beverly, like just be annoying and get up and under him. They'll try Kawhi on him. They'll try Batum on him. I think this is a good Terrence Mann series because he can guard kind of both Paul and Booker semi-credibly. I think they got some tools. I just don't see a path. I don't see a pathway without Paul George. I just don't. The Suns have been even kind of playing not super like telegenic, inspiring basketball. They've been utterly dominant with their four best players on the court, and I think they have enough answers for the rest of their rotation. I'm not sure I see a way the Clippers could win the series, and I say that as someone who picked the Clippers to make the finals before the season, Coach.
I did too. I had Milwaukee Clippers in the finals just like you did. Whatever. I've been wrong plenty of times before. I'll be wrong plenty of times going forward. Things change during the season. Before I forget, I'm glad you mentioned Team Man. This was his. He had better numbers against Phoenix than any team in the West. So for whatever reason,
I didn't know. I didn't realize that.
And I think he played 4 games. So that's a thing. I think Gordon is going to spend some time on KD and you have to get under him. You have to chase his dribble, get him uncomfortable. But the big picture problem, as I always, again, I talk about the biggest physical force first. The Clippers' switchability at a lot of their positions kind of has met its antidote with Phoenix because of Kevin Durant. Like it just doesn't matter. No matter what you do, Book is great. They've got KD. He fixes everything, and it doesn't allow them to go through long stretches of misses because he's just. I mean, his season this year is historic for obvious reasons. What 50?
It's actually crazy. I did my all NBA teams came out today. I'm going to reveal them later for people who don't have insider. I didn't have Durant on because of 47 games. I mean, I heard Simmons say we should create some sort of like special award for Durant. You look at his numbers, like it's just crazy.
It's ridiculous.
It's just, I mean, there's just your jaw just drops onto the floor. This guy's shooting is just insane, and it might be. He's playing defense as well as he's ever played ever in his career.
Yeah, he's really. I'm happy for him. He's one of the best of all time, and players know it. I don't think players always know. I don't think they're always accurate because they think with their emotions and they're playing with their friends. KD is exactly what all of us think he is, and he's the antidote to what the Clippers can do. And the other thing is the way to make Phoenix pay for how little Kevin Durant's played for them is you got to get them uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden things can press a little bit in the game. I don't know how they get them uncomfortable without Paul George. So the problem is by the time they get Paul George, well, maybe they can split games, but it'll be too late. They're going to be down 2-0 or whatever it's going to be. So that's why, because I really do think with Paul George, I'd say 7, and I'm not sure who I'd pick in 7. I just don't think they're going to be in a position where it's 1-1 or 2-2, and all of a sudden Paul George comes back then. Then we don't know what he's going to be when he's like that. The Clips, they've got to get Phoenix uncomfortable offensively, force some turnovers, which they can do. What I like about Monty's teams are the guys like you said, Josh and Torrey. They're not going to be guarded very much. We can agree on that. But they're going to be a little bit like Looney and Green. They're going to be good connectors. Like they know what their offense is supposed to do. They know exactly what they're supposed to do. They're okay with it. They're not, there's a lot of guys in this league that they feel like, well, I'm open, I'm going to shoot it. Well, you're open because they want you to shoot it defensively. So, yeah, Zach, I always say to people, when you hear the phrase, take what the defense gives you, I always remind them that's idiotic. That's what the defense wants. You never do that. The best players force the issue. The best role players like Torrey and Josh and those guys, they get it. They'll pick their spots to shoot, but they're going to move the ball to their big 3, set screens, cut, which is a big thing for them as well. And I think make it tough on them. I also am curious about what happens if they go KD at 5 after DeAndre gets
it. That's in my notes. What do they do with backup center? What do both? I mean, the Clippers have gone. It's crazy that we're talking about Phoenix going no center and putting Durant at center, which is something they haven't done.
Right.
The Clippers, that was like baked into their identity. It was a foundational part of who they were, and they've completely abandoned it since acquiring Mason Plumlee. I think it's actually been the right call, but that's in my notes is like, when will we see the Suns try that? And it may
Yeah,
not be until
they
they
need it.
really feel stress, and they
Right,
may not feel enough stress in this series.
right,
On a Kogi and Craig, offensive rebounding is a big part of what they're going to bring. The Suns have used Kogi as a screener a little bit since getting. If that means Ayton is down in the dunker spot, that's fine. DeAndre Ayton can be effective
right.
from down there as an offensive rebounder. Just to, if you're going to hide your worst guy on Kogi or not guard him, we're going to bring him into the ball screen action just a little bit,
Yep.
just to mix it up. I think that's smart, and especially if the Clippers are hiding a weaker defender on him. It's the same. I mentioned Lakers Grizzlies. I mentioned, how the LeBron will hunt Morant. Like, if that means using Austin Reeves as a screener, using D'Lo as a screener, like those guys can make the connector plays. Like, if they slip into open
Yeah.
space, get them the ball, they'll make the next play. I think Kogi can do a little bit of that too. And look, it's not breaking news to say if the Clippers are going to have any chance here, they're just going to need an apex Kawhi series from game one. There is no warm up period for Kawhi. They need the Kawhi that put the Mavs away with just epic masterpiece after epic masterpiece 2 seasons ago. They need him from the jump. They need him to beat up Chris Paul on mismatches in call his guy up for picks, beat him up. They need him to make jump shots over DeAndre Ayton if they have drop coverage. They just need a monster Kawhi series. And that's why I think they're going to I don't think they want to overtax him by saying you've also got to be our primary Durant defender and carry our offense. I just don't know if they can do that to Kawhi without Paul George to take off the load. It's just they're going to need an epic series for him. There's no other way to say it, and it's just I'll be very surprised if the Clippers win. My pick is going to be Suns in 6.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I want to say two quick things. One is I found it interesting. It's not so interesting. A lineup that worked. That's what's interesting is how well it worked. Westbrook, Gordon, Batum, Kawhi, and Z were plus 6.8 in 5 games. All right,
That's going to be their starting lineup, I think.
I
By
think
the way,
so.
I should have mentioned that earlier. They've messed around with their lineups a little bit. They've had guys in and out. Russ, Gordon, Kawhi, Batum, Zoo I would bet good money is going to be their starting 5.
Right, and they were really good in the few times they played. I think 16 or some odd minutes. And then the other thing is what you said. I don't. When you say there's 4 series that all could have been the lead, this is why it's KD versus Kawhi. We have so many things going on. I think sometimes we can miss that. These are really, truly legendary generational players. And I'm reminded of something, Zach. In fact, you and I were together when it happened down in Miami. Kawhi was young. He had not won anything at that point. And it was almost like Pop told him, I don't think you're better than LeBron, generally speaking, over the course of a season. But let's see if you can be better than him in this series. Go at him. When you're open from 3, I don't care if there's only 2 seconds gone in the possession, shoot it. And I've gone back over the years and watched that tape of that series, I think in 15, where Kawhi just let LeBron have it and just came at him, defensively came at him. LeBron had a fine series, but the Spurs smoked him. And that's when we saw this Kawhi. I want Ty. I think Ty Lue is one of our best coaches. He's super pragmatic. He's the opposite in most cases of guys like Mike Malone and Darvin, who are so afraid and so panicky. I'd like to see him really challenge Kawhi. KD is maybe top 3, top 4 of all time. There's people that say that. Let's find out if he's better than you. Let's just go at him. If he's better than you, so be it. But let's see if he is. Go at him. And if you end up getting tired, Paul will be coming eventually. But go at him these first couple games and tell your team, make them stop our guy. We think he's the best player in basketball right now, and see what happens.
It's going to be a challenge. On Durant, I've actually been surprised at how often he's being used as just purely a spot up guy in Phoenix, even though that's part of his value. We know that. Like, KD in the corner is still massively valuable, and he's willing to do that and let Chris and Devin cook. I think as they get rolling more in the playoffs, they're going to need to use him more as a screener, as a ball handler in the pick and roll with Chris Paul as a screener, kind of get more predatory matchup wise like that. And as Kawhi, one thing they did occasionally against Phoenix in a regular season when Kawhi felt like he was getting rolling is something the Rockets used to do for James Harden, which is set picks for him at half court and just get him going downhill
Yeah.
hard and fast and into guys. And that's an interesting tool. I'm going Suns in 6.
Yeah.
And my pick to make the finals being gone in the first round. Bye-bye. Series number 5. And now we get a big drop off in the series power rankings. Almost by default, as Homer Simpson once said, the 2 sweetest words in the English language, default. Boston, Atlanta. And I called the Hawks win over the Heat in the play-in series, and yet I still think that's a huge win for Boston. Boston against small guards is death. Yeah. And the Hawks have 2 of them in DeJounte Murray, although he fights like all hell. He's a very good defensive player. And Trae Young, who is just a blinking target at all times for opposing offenses. And Boston just rained threes on the Hawks in 2 games. In the 2 games that mattered between the teams, Boston was 41 of 88 on threes, just generating whatever they wanted, hunting Trae Young everywhere and passing out of that. And defensively, they're going to throw a lot of looks at Trae, just like the Clippers are going to throw a lot of looks at the Suns. But their favorite look was not hiding, but putting Horford over on DeAndre Hunter and guarding Clint Capella with wing players and switching Trae Young, Clint Capella 2-man game as much as they could. Obviously, they couldn't get to that matchup every time. And when Al was on Clint Capella, they also managed fine. I think they've just got so many defensive weapons to throw at Trae, from Derek White, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and that switching scheme that I just talked about, which the Hawks, the reason you do that is obvious. If you want to involve Al Horford in the pick and roll, if you want to involve Boston center, you got to put DeAndre Hunter in as a screener and have Capella or Okongwu hanging out in the dunker spot, mucking up your spacing. And that's fine. Like, you can make hay out of that, but it's not the way the Hawks are used to playing. I just think this is an absolutely terrible matchup for Atlanta. And I will give them a gentleman's sweep game and pick Boston in 5. I just don't know what answers they have. And the interesting answer that they've had under Quinn Snyder that won them the play-in game is offensive rebounding. They're number 2 in offensive rebounding since March 1st. It's been a clear point of emphasis. Boston's the number 1 defensive rebounding team in the league. Not by a lot. They're number 1, and they're close to like a pack of teams at 3, 4, 5. But I just think if they're diligent, they take that away and they make Trae Young's life hell. And the Hawks have a lot of talent. I just don't see a path for them to win a lot of games in this series.
Yeah, nor do I. I have 3 things down here for Atlanta to have any shot to make a competitive series. I actually like the other series we haven't talked about yet better. Atlanta boards versus Boston's, defensive glass work, as you said. We saw it against Miami, that athleticism, that energy, that can carry, that can travel. They can do that in, game out. They have a lot of it. Okongwu and Capella in particular, but all their guys. Boston's a lack of alertness would be a concern of mine, and they'll take advantage of that. Atlanta, I mean, this. I probably heard this from one of your pods, one of the pods at ESPN anyway. They went, 70-plus days, one game or, within 500. Like, they're finally on a win streak. It's been since like January since they won more than a couple games in a row. And so they're capable of just playing badly no matter what Boston's doing. And then the third thing is, Tatum went through a stretch where he really was struggling, I thought, as a shooter. His shots were there. He wasn't making them. He played some point for them. Against Atlanta, he did a good job of like running the offense against the Hawks a little bit for whatever reason. And he looked the part. He looked comfortable. Boston looked comfortable. They were getting a lot of the threes that you talked about because he draws 2 people. Anytime you run a veer screen or a go screen, he's going to get both guys on him. And the guy's going to be wide open when they veer out behind 3. And so can they disrupt Tatum? Can they get him thinking about things? Can they get him back to missing? And then that's really the 3 things. The one question I have is does Boston know, okay, let's get this thing done in 4. Let's try to get it done in 4. Because if they really lock in, which is a challenge all human beings have, and we see it all the time, Bucks versus Magic were almost guaranteed a game one win for Orlando or Toronto when they played the Magic back a few years ago. Lock in, find their shooters early. Boston, I think, can solve a lot of Atlanta's problems if they find those guys early. That requires attention to detail. That requires respect for the opponent. I think Boston will have it. They should. We know what Atlanta did 2 years ago. I know that their coach will do the same. Quinn doesn't know the Celtics as well as he knows the West. This is not the Miami Heat. You shouldn't be able to beat them up in the glass the same. I don't know about Robert Williams' knee. I just have no idea. That I think matters a little bit. But we're talking about, are they going to get swept or winning 5? Boston is going to win in 4 or 5 and move on. And they need to get better from this series, though. And then I want to throw one other thing. I know you do this sometimes. Derek White is such a magnificent player. He's such a great defense.
My all defensive teams came out today. He was first team all defense. I thought he was permanent. Not permanent. I think Caruso was the best permanent guard defender in the league this year. Factoring in the fact that Derek White played hundreds and hundreds more minutes, I think he was the best defensive guard in the NBA this season, period.
Boom.
And he's going to spend a lot of time guarding Trae Young.
Yep.
And the Celtics have a lot of guys to throw at him. And like you said, I think this is I like what you just said about Boston, like focusing in on let's get this out of the way before an injury hits. Like, let's not mess around. I thought they were even like cavalier against Miami a little bit in the conference finals last year. I thought that series should have ended earlier. And part of it was they just kind of got hazy on offense. Like they just wouldn't treat every possession with the urgency that they need to. And I think this is a series where they can literally go at Trae Young every single possession. Tatum, Derek White pick and rolls, Tatum, whoever he's guarding pick and rolls, and they will get good looks out of it almost every time. And if they don't let Atlanta off the hook by just sort of meandering through possessions, I think it could be a short series. You mentioned Rob Williams. I think Boston's plan as of now is continue to bring him off the bench, start Horford at the 5 and play 5 out. And maybe it's a minor thing for the Hawks. I think that makes this kind of a not great series for John Collins. He doesn't really have anyone to guard. He's going to have to guard a perimeter player.
It's a problem. You're right.
And they're fine guarding him with perimeter players. He hasn't shot it well from 3 this year. He's not a big like post up bully ball weapon for them, although he can do it. I think this could end up being a big Sadiq Bey and Bogdan Bogdanovic series. Just playing more smallish lineups, I guess. And they don't like to play Young and Murray and Bogdanovic together, the 3 of them, because they think it hurts their defense. John Collins is a good player. And if this just isn't a great series for him, just having a good player who's, he can play when it's Grant Williams and Al Horford, or Grant Williams and Robert Williams, or Horford and Robert Williams, then those are better minutes for him. I almost think they should toy with him at the 5 and just see what that looks like for a few minutes here and there, so Boston can't play as many gimmicks on the pick and roll with Trae. But I don't love any of these answers. I just think the Celtics are way better than the Heat and than the Hawks, rather, than a horrible matchup for them.
My first note on Atlanta's problems were 4 words. Collins struggles with Tatum. I watched a lot of those 2 breakdowns, and he doesn't have a plan. Like maybe it's because physically he doesn't move the way he needs to. He just really didn't have a plan. And Jason got whatever he wanted, whether he made the shot or not, it's irrelevant. You can force a guy to make a tough shot. He might make it, but it's a tough shot, and you can make him uncomfortable. Collins just doesn't do that. So I agree with you. Put him on almost anybody. Well, Jaylen Brown would make him struggle too. Anyone else, anyone big, because he is valuable on the offensive glass because you're looking for the athletic, energetic advantage that the Atlanta can grab. But yeah, when you're a very key player, can't guard the other team's best player, it's a problem. Just like we talked about with the number of guys they have to guard Trae. So I think Quinn's going to have this team better next year, and they're going to be able to start pretty fast on next season's plans.
Big offseason. We didn't even mention the implications for like the Clippers if they lose in the first round. I don't know what that means for them in the offseason. The Hawks, if they lose in the first round, I mean, there was this coverage of like Trae Young, and reportedly, according to The Athletic, the Hawks haven't closed the door on like maybe someday making a phone call about trading Trae Young. Like, of course they haven't. The idea that all of this was riding on the play-in game, and now all that noise is gone, is ludicrous. If they get rolled in this series, all those questions reemerge. And by the same token, we're going to talk about the Sixers now. Assuming the Celtics win this series, if they underperform against Philly and lose in the second round, and it's like not a complete 7-game nail biter, that raises some serious questions. Not serious, but interesting question for the Celtics, who I think Jaylen Brown's going to make all NBA and be eligible for the Supermax. And that's they got that's an interesting. I mean, I think they probably offer it in the end, but do they try to negotiate a little bit, like 30 to 35%? We try to negotiate a number in the middle there? Do we? We'll see. But that's getting down the line. Brooklyn, Philadelphia, number 6 on my list, and I'm with you that you could flip-flop it to be number 5, because talk about a team with things riding on this postseason. Mm-hmm. Talk about a team that could look a whole lot different next year if they flame out in the playoffs again. The Philadelphia 76ers, you want to show me you're ready? And I've said all year, the Sixers are in the inner circle of title contenders. Yes, it's a disadvantage to them that they play in the same conference as 2 of the other teams that inner circle, and they got to probably beat both of them without home court advantage. But you got everything. You got the guy who's going to win an MVP. You got Harden, who's played most of the year at an all-star level, and they're saying his leg injury seems to be better, whatever was bothering him. Come out serious, come out focused against a Nets team that has zero hope of matching up one-on-one with Embiid, and so is going to result to double teams and switches and scram switches behind those switches and loading up and helping and getting arms in the passing lanes. Play clean. Embiid, he actually, I think, against the Nets in particular, started making really quick decisions with the ball in the post, and I like when he plays that way, even when he just pings the ball right back to his entry passer. If that guy's open, let it fly. Like, tap it right back to him. But come out focused, because they should overwhelm the Nets, even though the Nets have all these rangy wings and they can switch and maybe they can bother Harden and they'll try all these trick defenses. Come out and bowl them over. Have an MVP series. Have an MVP emphatic, like Nick Claxton, I'm putting you in the basket. Day'Ron Sharpe, you got no hope of getting offensive rebounds against me. I'm Joel Embiid. You want to play? You dare play 5 out against me? Like, what are you going to do when Claxton's on the bench? Are you going to play Dorian Finney-Smith at the 5? Because Ben Simmons ain't playing. I'm putting you in the basket. Like, come out and beat them up, because I do think the Nets have some tools here. And it wouldn't shock me if they like mucked up one of the first couple games in Philly and this was 1-1 coming into Brooklyn. All that said, I'm picking Sixers in 5. I'm speaking it into existence. Come out with urgency, Sixers in 5. I have a feeling you are going to pick a longer series.
Well, I mean, you made a pretty good argument for why that would be pretty stupid.
No, it's not stupid. I think they got tools.
They definitely do, but I don't think they can win the series unless they really change up how they play. And so, you only know me as a coach for individuals, but I used to coach teams, and I coached lots and lots of teams and lots of games, probably thousands of games. And these are my favorite matchups, is when my team was probably going to get killed, and I wanted to try something different and see if the other team could adjust. So I thought about how can Brooklyn win this series, not a game, but win this series. And I thought, you have to do a couple of things. Number one, you got to get up to 53s a game. You've got to let it fly all the time. Play as many shooters as you can, not exclusively, but as often as you can. Open shot, play super fast. Don't run, race all the time. Don't double Embiid. Let him score 50 after 3 every game. Claxton's going to foul trouble, probably. Sharpe is I watched Sharpe when he was in college in the ACC. Unbelievable offensive rebounder, active, energetic guy. Make Joel block him out. If he doesn't, we'll make him pay for it. And then go small also.
And by the way, he might not block him out. The Sixers are not a good rebounding team.
Right.
And that's going to be like, but you want to come in, be serious, block his ass out. Right. It's the only way he's going to hurt you is offensive rebounding. Right. Take it away, take him out of the series.
Right, which he will do, though. He will go to the glass. He is active and athletic, and he's getting better. I watched him in the G League this year. He's a better player. And then go small and make Joel guard someone small, and get out there and shoot threes and race him constantly. And now here's the kicker. If he's scoring 50 after 3, which he really could do if you don't double much, and you can spot double. Obviously, you can play with a little bit.
You
Don't
can front and like bring
right,
help from behind. They're going to try 9,000 defenses against
right.
Embiid.
But don't let these other guys get off. And let's just see. They listen, they're all excited about Joel getting the MVP. I think he will win. I agree with you, whether I picked him or not. But man, these guys want to play too. And I'm Doc Rivers just wants the ball to go to Joel Embiid, which is what Brett Brown always wanted. Get the ball inside, get the ball inside, get the ball inside. James Harden was magnificent. To me, he was third team All NBA. I understand why if he makes someone's fourth team, which means he's out. I get it. He's been terrific.
He was on my fourth team.
I get it. Sorry. There's a lot of good players in the NBA card, but I would want to get them angry. Like if they're angry at you, meaning the Nets, you're in trouble. If they're angry at each other, frustrated, you got a shot. And then you also might wear him down. This guy has played a lot of minutes and he's played hard, probably harder than we've seen him, more consistently, and hope that he wears himself out. It's the rope-a-dope. I'm going to let you score all the points you want. You're going to have to guard our three-point shooters and our offensive rebounders. We're going to try to take charges on you. We're going to flop. We're going to get you uncomfortable and angry ourselves and flustered. And maybe your team doesn't shoot well in the fourth quarter because we're hot and no one's touched the ball but Joel, more or less, and we might steal a game. And that's what they've got to do early, is steal a game and get the Sixers pointing fingers. Because I'm telling you, Zach, I've watched the tape. There are times where Joel will screw up and he has a look of, oh, I can't believe this guy messed up on my team. And it was Joel's fault. Maybe it was a 60-40 situation. You got to get him frustrated, and then you have a fighting chance. It's just not likely to happen. But otherwise, you have no chance.
Look, I think this is a different Sixers team, hopefully, in terms of their steeliness and their mettle. Also, in their most recent second round fest, Embiid missed the first two games due to injury, and it was 2-2 once he came back. Right now, I know it's a dispiriting 2-2 because you lost the last two, and increasingly dispiriting, where the hell did James Harden go? Oh, right. He quaked again and then blamed everybody else for not getting him the ball and blah, blah, blah. I'd like to think this is a different Sixers team, and I think it is. But all prior postseason evidence suggests that if there's a team that will wobble when you punch them, this is the team. If there's a big bully who doesn't have a chin, enough of a chin to sustain 4 playoff series, this is that team. I think they're different. I expect them to be different. I don't think Brooklyn can hit them with the kind of shot that would wobble them, but somebody's going to. And you're right to say, whether it's pointing fingers, self-doubt, whatever it is, their response to that, whether it's Boston in the second round or whenever, is going to determine what this team does. And I love what you said about Embiid. I think ultimately the best way for Brooklyn to guard him is to play that kind of in-between defense, to say, we're not gonna just send hard double teams in the post at you, even though you outweigh Nick Claxton by 100 pounds or whatever it is. We're gonna half help, and we're gonna have Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and Royce O'Neal and Dorian Finney-Smith. We're gonna have at least 3 of those dudes on the floor all the time, and we're long, and we're gonna have our arms in the passing lanes, and we're gonna make your decisions harder. We're gonna test you, Joel Embiid, as a decision maker. Can you read layers of defense that are disguised, that are confusing, that could rotate in multiple directions based on what you do? I think that's the best way to guard him, and I think they actually are equipped to do that. And the other thing I'll say about the Sixers is, in terms of urgency, I know they have Joel Embiid, who's a center, and they have Harden, who wants to walk the ball up. I just would like to play with a little more pace, so that if the Nets do switch a Harden Embiid pick and roll, which should be impossible for them, that you actually have enough time to throw the ball to Embiid in the post against a guard or a wing. If there's 5 on the shot clock by the time you get into your thing, you may not have time to do that. And that happens to the Sixers a lot, where they just kind of fritter away time. Less frittering, please.
Yeah. This is when I talk about playing with pace. I don't think Philly's going to match it. Just get them to race back on defense. I still think they're going to slow it down. What you're saying, I think every team should play with more pace. That's why you see, if fans don't know why, That's why you'll see guards sometimes not pick up the inbounds pass on a dead ball, even though there's 8 minutes to go in the second quarter. They just want a longer half court possession. It's smart to want that. I mean, even in high school when we had our post grad, we had some of those things. We did the same thing. I
But
just
that's
know,
fine. That's
yeah,
fine. You
right,
just don't waste the first
right,
14 seconds of the shot clock. Like, get
right.
into your stuff.
Right. This is just they were 30th in pace, I think, post All Star. This is why I want the Nets to fly. Just get them. Yeah, the underdog like this has to get them uncomfortable. And I'm telling you, I just know firsthand the frustration it is for the team sometimes to know the ball's got to go to Embiid every time, or seemingly so. And so double down on it, Nets. Let him get it every time. Let him score every time. Let him be the one-man wrecking crew and doing his flex and whatever. And let's just see how things go and see if he's got a fourth quarter. Now, you got to make a bunch of threes to still be in the game if he's got 50 after 2.5 quarters. But you're going to have to do that anyway. Shoot a lot of threes. Cam Johnson is a huge guy. I always forget that. That is a big, tall, he's just a wing, but he is not a small, slight wing. Play him at 5-some. That guy's a strong, good defensive player, a great shooter. You've got some tools. When you said the word muck it up, just do something different they're not expecting. Make Doc pivot. Make the Sixers pivot a little bit. Give yourself a chance. Otherwise, I think they're getting routed.
Can we one time only lend Kyle Kuzma to the Sixers so that we can just have Kuzma and Dinwiddie on the floor at the same time now, and we can take this feud off social media where it has been as hot and personal as any NBA player feud you will ever see.
Yeah.
And put it on the court. That's what I want. I want Kyle Kuzma put on a Sixers jersey. Just make him a game. Just one game for the Sixers. Pace, you brought up a good point. The Nets need to run. Yeah. Test Philly's commitment to the actual hard grunt work of transition defense, because they have wavered in that before, and it's an area that they're going to need to clean up. Might as well make them clean it up now. See if they're actually willing to put in that grunt work now. And part of that is, as wonderful as Mikal Bridges has been in Brooklyn in this high usage role, I think we've started to see the last 5 or 6 games. There's a lot of like 6 of 21, 2 assist games in there for him. I think we started to see the toll that role takes on a player who's not used to it. And I just don't think they can win with him and Dinwiddie running, 60 combined pick and rolls between them. I don't think that's going to be good enough. So I'm picking Philly in 5.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, let's talk token 1-8 talk. Starting in the East, the Bucks, we'll see when Chris Middleton comes back. I know that there's hope he'll be ready for game 1 even of the first round. Let's assume that he is back for all or most of this series and looks more or less like this 2023 Chris Middleton, which is pretty good, somewhat inconsistent. Whole quarters where he looks like, oh my God, they have peak Chris Middleton, and then whole quarters where it's like, maybe they don't have peak Chris Middleton. I don't think Chicago can really give him a series. Miami, I said this last pod, everyone was already doing can Miami scare Boston in the first round? And I was like, can they beat Atlanta first? Because I kind of think they're not going to beat Atlanta. And of course they didn't beat Atlanta. And I understand the respect that you have for Miami and for Jimmy Butler and Bam and Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah.
At some point, a team either comes together and clicks or it doesn't. And we're 80-something games into this, and the Heat have just never come together and clicked. So I think Chicago, in a lot of ways, is like a less fearsome opponent, at least reputation-wise. I don't particularly think Milwaukee has anything to worry about against either of these teams. But, every team gets a game, maybe 2. I don't see. I mean, I'm not thinking a lot about that series. Let's put it that way.
No, the only thing I'm thinking about is what does Milwaukee look like going forward? We obviously need to see Chris, and I remember when they won the championship, Drew Holiday had the famous lob pass to kind of win the game with Giannis.
Oh my God, the ballsiest pass in like the history of the NBA, because they could have just like run it up and taken a foul, and he was like, no, I'm going to throw the half court lob.
Right, it was unbelievable. But that way, we remember that Drew couldn't make a shot in that game and took a lot of them. And I was really proud of him for that because it's not something he's comfortable doing. He wasn't comfortable doing. He's better at it now. I think I saw him recently, blitz the Pacers, I think, for 51. I realized it was Indiana. But Drew wouldn't score 50 against the air. Like that he's transforming still, like Brook Lopez. A lot to say about Milwaukee's team where their guys past their peak are still peaking. Quite
Oh my
extraordinary,
God,
actually.
Brook Lope! This is as good an all-around season as Brook Lope has
Unbelievable.
ever had.
Yeah.
It's the same defense he's played in Milwaukee, which is to say borderline defensive player of the year
Right.
level defense, with the best offense he's ever played in
Right.
Milwaukee. He's had an unbelievable season.
Right. Buzz done a
Um,
great job. I want to see Drew be assertive right now because I think they'll need to be assertive to beat Philly or Boston.
in the West, I do think Denver, who kind of just muddled their way through an entire month of NBA basketball, defensive slippage, Michael Malone calling them soft like every other game, seemingly, and that having no impact on how they played. I'm actually, you know, you can either be 100% worried or 100% dismissive. It's just late season malaise for a team that's waiting for the playoffs. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm like half worried that stretch revealed that something is a little off in Denver. Um, that said, I think they got a break with the Lakers winning and going into the 7th seed. I Oklahoma City, for as good a story as they are, I don't think they have any shot against the Nuggets in a first round series. I'm not even gonna. I mean, every team's got a shot. They have talent. They have Shea. It's been amazing. Minnesota, to me, would be more interesting. Anthony Edwards has not looked good and does not look totally healthy to me right now. And if that's the case, and without Jaden McDaniels, who punched a wall, I think that's a pretty clear Denver win as well. So I don't know if you disagree on either. I think Minnesota is a little bit more interesting just because Towns and Edwards are Towns and Edwards. But and we'll see what happens with Gobert now. He's got back spasms. He half punched Kyle Anderson's shoulder. Didn't seem to hurt Kyle Anderson very much. Kind of not the best punch I've ever seen.
Who's
Although
on his team?
I guess if you don't want to get suspended for a lot of games, you aim like a little light nudge to the clavicle. Just hard to see Minnesota beating the Nuggets in a series. I guess they're more interesting though.
Yeah, no, you said it good. I as to the punch to the shoulder, as the older brother of two boys and then a little sister, my brothers would tell you that their shoulders have enough scar tissue; they'll never feel pain again. Because I would never have punched them in the face. They were my little brothers, but I did beat their shoulders up pretty frequently. Rudy Gobert did not try to hurt anybody there. I think Denver got really lucky because I would have picked the Lakers to beat them. Denver is a team that I'm all the way out on them. I think they've lost faith in their bench. I think Mike has panicked hugely. They probably could use Bones Highland right now, and they traded him for a reason. And I just don't trust their second unit. I don't trust that Jokic isn't going to play 44 minutes a game every game. They're going to win this series no matter who they play because they got lucky the Lakers won that game and shouldn't have. I agree with you that Minnesota's a better, not just Cat and Ant, but Gobert too. Like he's not, Jokic's not going to destroy him inside.
They have size. The Thunder have no size. No,
that's not,
Jalen Williams is a really nice rookie second round center. He's 6'9", and they have like Dario Saric is the only backup big that's getting minutes for their team.
Right. So I think Denver has dodged a bullet. They'll win round one. And then I'm not going to say anything until we see who they're playing round two, but I'm really down on them right now. And I was high on them for much of the year when the Clippers were struggling, and I don't believe in their second unit anymore, or really their first unit for that matter. I just believe
they don't have a second unit. They have like a guy and a half. Like the Bruce Brown and sometimes Christian Brown, and like then it's just kind of like spin the wheel, and like if it lands on Zeke Naji, like go out there, like do something.
And Zach, they're so panicked out there. I listened to a game not too long ago, maybe it was early March though, and the other team scored like twice, and the Nuggets missed 2 wide open shots in a row. And very nice man Scott Hastings knows a lot about basketball said, "Well, this is the problem with the Nuggets second unit. They go through spells." Like they missed 2 shots, but there's such a panic because for so long, the non-Jokic minutes have been like the non-Embiid minutes in Philly. And Mike has not had a steady hand with that. He challenges guys a lot. It doesn't really work. I think it's a professional franchise. I don't think Calvin Booth. I know he didn't hire this coach, and I think this coach knows he might be fighting for his job, and that adds a lot of stress too. So I think it's a mess. They can clean it up if they win in 4. The feel goods will be there. They'll be all great, and then we'll see what happens in round 2. But they should have no problem in round 1.
Yeah, Phoenix looming is a problem. Coach, I am going to end by revealing my all NBA, all defense, and all rookie teams because they are revealed today online, but it's on Insider. You can stick around or you can not stick around, up to you, but I will go fast. First team all NBA. Are you ready? What do you want to do? You want to listen, Coach, for
Yeah,
5 minutes?
I know him, but I'm happy to hear him again. I read your article.
Okay. First team all NBA. We'll start with the Big Daddy, all NBA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, guard. Donovan Mitchell, guard. Jason Tatum, forward. Giannis, forward. And Embiid, center. That was easy. Donovan Mitchell jumped from second to first team when the Mavericks collapsed into just a heap of complete embarrassment. And I just can't put Luka on first team, despite the fact that he's better than Donovan Mitchell. We all know he's better than Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell was outstanding all year. And what I wrote in the column is you can't blame the Mavs collapse on Luka or Kyrie, even like a plural. Everyone gets some blame, but I think giving them even like a plurality of blame, the real blame is like just on the drip of talent out the door. But you need your best player to be a galvanizer in those situations, and Luka did not galvanize the Mavericks. He whined to the officials. He was bad on defense. He was frustrated for whatever reason, so he got knocked down to second team. Coach, what I did on my second team, though, because guard was so crowded, I discovered a way to fit an extra guard onto the broader 3 All-NBA teams, and that was moving Luka to forward, which I am fine with. He's a point forward. He guards power forward sometimes. He can be a forward. He's eligible to forward. So my second team, guard number 1, Steph Curry. He's Steph Curry. I'm going to save second guard for later. Forward, Jimmy Butler, no-brainer. Forward, Luka Doncic, no-brainer. Center, Nikola Jokic, no-brainer. My second guard on my second team is Drew freaking Holiday. And I think that name will probably draw some attention. I think he's got a good shot to make All-NBA. But there were just so many other alternatives that either didn't play as many games as Drew Holiday or aren't as good as Drew Holiday, even if they played as many or more games. I just think his two-way impact, this is the best season ever as a shooter. You mentioned it earlier. I think he's deserving. He also made my all-defense team. Third team, guard Damian Lillard, guard De'Aaron Fox. And Fox was the guy who got in based on me moving Luka to forward. It ended up being like, do I want De'Aaron Fox or do I want Julius Randle? And I chose De'Aaron Fox over Julius Randle because my forwards on the third team are LeBron and Jaylen Brown. And my center is Domantas Sabonis. That's it. Coach, what are your big points of disagreement?
I was surprised to see Jaylen Brown getting so much love. I know the Celtics need it because they're not going to keep him otherwise. I don't really know, but that's what I'm thinking. But no, I thought what you said was great. I love the Fox pick. I had Donovan on my first team, Donovan Mitchell. Luka, I think you expressed it really well. And yes, he plays forward all the time. Primary ball handlers doesn't mean you're not a forward. LeBron's been a forward his whole career. He always has the ball in his hands. Like, what's the big deal? You did great. You did great.
Apologies to Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. There are many more apologies in the column. Apologies to the Grizzlies. Apologies to everyone. Apologies to Devin Booker. You'll see it in the column. All defensive team. First team, guard Alex Caruso, guard Derek White, forward Evan Mobley, forward Jaren Jackson, center Brook Lopez. Easy speasy. My defensive player of the year ballot was Jackson, Mobley, Lopez in that order. Caruso and White were the best defensive guards. Done. Second team. This was tough. Guard Drew Holiday, guard Herb Jones over a whole pile of guys that we'll get to. Giannis at forward, OG Anunoby at forward, center Draymond Green. And yes, that means no Jaden McDaniels, no Bam Adebayo, no Mikal Bridges, no Jimmy Butler, no Dylan Brooks, no Kawhi, PG, Jared Vanderbilt, and a lot of other guys. I just thought these guys were the most deserving. And that front court of Giannis, Anunoby, Draymond, and then the pile of guys with them like Bam and McDaniels, that was absolutely brutal. And you could argue second guard spot with Drew Holiday could be any number of guys. Lucas Dort got mentioned in my column. Marcus Smart's always there. Jimmy Butler is listed as both guard and forward. Dylan Brooks listed as both guard and forward. That's fine. If you want one of those guys, that's fine. I just feel like Herb Jones was the best combination of consistent effort, on-ball impact, off-ball impact, rebounding impact. We can agree to disagree on that.
No, it sounds great. Dylan Brooks was the one name that I don't like him necessarily. I don't like watching him play. I'm not sure I'd like to be his teammate, but he's a hell of a defensive player. If he had made that list, I wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, when again, read the column if you want to see the full list of apologies and mea culpas and all this. And I know a category near and dear to your heart, Coach, because it's the deep cut category. All rookie. First team, the cuts aren't so deep. Banchero, Kessler, wing Jalen Williams, which is the top three in my rookie of the year, although not in that order. Mathurin and Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray's got to be first team.
Agreed.
I will not hear any disagreements on that. If you want to flip Mathurin to second team because you consider him kind of an empty calorie scorer, didn't help a lot on defense, complete tunnel vision on offense, hit the rookie wall and like collapse for 20 games, that's fine. I get it. He finished actually kind of strong last 5-6 games. And he averaged 20 points a game for like a long time. As a rookie, that's pretty rare. But if you want to flip him out and put him on second team, here's my second team. Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Jabari Smith Jr., Andrew Nebhart, Tari Eason. And I've been astonished, despite the fact that I love Jeremy Sohan, despite the fact that Shaedon Sharpe piled up a lot of points in a lot of games that meant a whole lot of nothing. Despite all that, despite AJ Griffin having a really nice year as a rotation player for most of the year and some other rookies like Ochai Agbaji and David Roddy finishing strong, astonished that anyone would leave off Tari Eason or Andrew Nebhart. I've seen a lot of ballots without either of those guys. They have to be on second team at least. And you have argued that I have the wrong pacer on first team.
Yeah, I had Nembhard first team. He was just a better rookie. There's a reason why he started over Mathurin in the same position Mathurin normally plays, and Nembhard doesn't play that position typically. He's a point guard, and Tari Eason made my second team. He's going to be terrific. I mean, those are the 10, I think. And I like Jeremy very much too, but Sharpe doesn't deserve it. There are some metrics that have him as the worst player in the NBA this year. He's going to be terrific, maybe. Like, he definitely has a ton of talent. I'm excited to see what they do, but I wouldn't have put him on that. We have advanced metrics for a reason, and I like looking at them. But no, you did a great job.
David Thorpe, this is always such a pleasure. I just love this time of year. I love looking at the film and digging into the matchups and trying to foresee what we are going to see. And the cool thing is we'll see a lot of that, and then we'll see a lot of other stuff that we didn't necessarily expect to see. A lot of desperate ploys, a lot of aggressive ploys, a lot of out-of-the-box ploys. That is the fun of the playoffs. You will be chronicling it all at True Hoop. You guys podcast twice a week, and you will be writing columns and breaking down all of it. Subscribe to True Hoop. Listen to David. Buy his book. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful annual present that you give me.
Thanks, Zach. Enjoy the next few months, my man.